if you're looking at the car model, there's like, so there's 4 boxes. It's a quadrant. On the left side, we have the driver in the driving position, the dominant energy, and then behind it is the 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's useful now to talk about the axis relating to others, or should we stay with the axis relating to self and go to the 3-year-old or inferior function and talk about that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Do you think that's better than jumping track? Okay, so let's stay with this polarity. Remember, these functions come in pairs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at your car model for your personality type, again, you can find this information over Personality Hacker. You'll notice that your driver is the polarity opposite energy of your 3-year-old or inferior, right? So if your driver is extroverted, your 3-year-old is going to be introverted. If your driver is sensation, then your 3-year-old will be intuition. Like whatever the opposite of the driver would be is going to be your 3-year-old. This is a place that's deeply uncertain, right? We call it a 3-year-old because that's about the certainty level it has. The technical name is inferior. Let's talk about what John Beebe calls it. How does he apply archetypical energy here?
So John calls it the anima or the animus, depending upon what gender you prefer, and it's the opposite gender. So I would have an animus for my introverted sensing or memory. That's mine. And you would have an anima energy associated with yours. And there's a lot of Jungian theory that comes into what the anima is or the animus and all that. But I guess an easy way of saying it is that it's a part of us that we can become really intimate with. Like it's a part of ourselves that we can, the word is integrate or make more of who we are, but it never 100% quite feels like us.
Yeah.
It feels like a part of us without being us, unlike the hero, which feels like us, right? If somebody asks you to describe yourself, you're going to spend a lot of time describing your first function.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know type. We won't do that with our 3-year-old or inferior. It feels like we other it. Does that make sense? Kind of like we other the opposite gender. And so there's like an othering relationship we have. But it's still an important part of who we are, and it still shows up, and it's still part of that axis of relating to self.
Yeah, so I was going to say, if it's part of axis relating to self, it's deeply uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
It means that, again, relating to self, if I relate with this part of me to others, they can't really help me much, and they can functionally help me to do the activities that this function maybe would help me do, but they can't help me feel better about it.
Right.
They can't give me enough approval in this function or this area of my life or this archetypical energy to make me feel good because it has to be validated from within.
That's
because
right.
it's my axis of relating to self.
Yep.
Even if it's an extroverted function. Let's say you're an ITP and you have extroverted feeling or harmony.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a function that's attuned to the needs of others and the social frameworks and what is vibing and going on for other people. Now, you're going to be deeply uncertain. It's a part of you. You can resonate with it and kind of pick it up when you see it sometimes. It's not always going to be obvious to you, and you're going to be deeply uncertain when you're here.
Yeah.
And I could say, you're doing a great job. You're doing fantastic. Don't worry. People like you. You're not caught. But that uncertainty, everybody could tell you you're doing a great job. The whole world could tell you, and you're going to still say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they're all wrong. It's only from the self that you can soothe this uncertainty and you're never going to soothe it fully. It's almost like making peace with it.
Yeah.
And we also talk about in our Personality Life Path mentorship, when you make peace with this part of yourself, it unlocks the gate to the shadow, right? And now we have access to shadow material to work with.
Yep.
But it starts here at the 3-year-old inferior function.
Yeah. So that, because it's like you mentioned, because it's the axis of relating to self, one way that manifests is that we can't gain comfort from others.
Yeah.
That, like you said, that we're doing a good job or that we're doing enough.
No soothing.
Right. Exactly. It's deeply uncertain because it doesn't take feedback. So, but I think that's a great example though. Well, what if you're an ITP type, an extroverted feeling or harmony, which is all about rapport with other people,
Feedback,
right? Relationships and feedback and all that stuff, approval, disapproval. How could that be axis of relating to self? And so the first one is that you can't get feedback from others on how you're doing to gain comfort. And the second one is that you won't be pushed.
Yeah.
A big part of how the inferior or 3-year-old shows up as the relationship to self is I get to decide what level that I'm at. I get to decide how much I'm willing to push that. You watch an ITP that's not ready to socialize and try to force them to do so,
yeah,
right?
It's not happening.
Yeah, they're the immovable object.
Or an ETJ that you want to get into their emotional state. They're like, are you kidding me? No
Yeah.
way. I'm compartmentalizing that. I'm not going there.
That's right.
There's a little bit more control. Even there's uncertainty. There's this rigidness, a gripping of it tightly.
Yeah, well, it's mine. I get to decide. And just like with the first function, we expect everybody to meet us on our terms.
Defer and honor it.
to defer and honor it. When it comes to the inferior, we expect everybody to meet us on our terms where we think we're at. Like, don't require more out of me than I think I can give you. I need the world to meet me at my level of proficiency, even if that's not very high. Like, why are you making me do this? Why are you forcing me to perform higher where I don't think I'm capable of it? So that's the other way that it's axis of relating to self. We think that the world should meet us where we're at.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk now about the axis of relating to others. Let's jump to the other side, unless you've got more to say about this part.
Well, I want to, again, just like we did with the first function, how's this going to show up in a relationship or a partnership?
Yeah.
In that first one, it's like, well, there's potential power struggles or an expectation of deference there. And if your partner isn't deferring to your first function, then you're going to almost take that as an insult. You're going to go, well, this is my terrain. This is what we do. The same is for the inferior. If they have, or 3-year-old function, if your partner has expectations for you that are higher than you have for yourself here, then you're going to dig your heels in. This could also be a source of arguments. Why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you making this happen? Why can't you get this handled? Why are you showing up in this way? Right? Like, there's going to be a bunch of maybe like they bring in this idea that you should be much better in this arena of life.
Yeah.
And you're not going to feel bad that you're not. You're not going to be like, like, yeah, you're right, I should get better. You're going to dig your heels in and be like, why do you need me to do all this stuff? Yeah.
This actually happens with my parents. So my dad has ISFP preferences. So he's got effectiveness or extroverted thinking as his 3-year-old. He does a pretty good job. They've built a nonprofit that does fairly well for 50 years now. In a couple of years, they're 48 years doing this. So he does fairly well for being, and my mom works with him too as an INFJ. So he's okay with it, but I've noticed that he has to simplify all systems down to the level of his extroverted thinking or effectiveness. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I remember when I was working with him as a young person, trying to, and my mom would want this too, and there was some relational challenge there. It's like, we could set up a little bit more sophisticated, donor system for like tracking donors, for example, like a software. But unless he knew how to operate it at the most simple level, he didn't want anything else complex that would require other people to operate it that his extroverted thinking couldn't handle. Mm-hmm. So he kept the system small, which throttled growth ultimately, because he wanted to make sure that he could handle anything in case somebody, like, he was uncertain about his delegation ability too, or holding staff or resource long-term. So as long as he could operate it, it was always okay. So he always diminished things down to the level of operation. So in a relationship, this could be happening, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody could want to bring down the thing that is their 3-year-old or inferior to the level that they can engage with it for other reasons than my father would.
Yeah.
To ensure that it doesn't get out of hand. But then the other partner's like, but I could do something way more sophisticated than this. Like, our household could be set up way better if you'd let me, but the partner doesn't want to because they can't reconcile. They wouldn't have any power in that dynamic. They would feel out of control or like it's too much for them or uncertain.
Yeah.
So they diminish it down to what they can handle or control. Yeah. I think this happens with couples all the time.
Yeah.
It's happening back and forth with each person.
Yep.
Right. Without us knowing it.
Yeah. I think of it in all sorts of ways. Like, why aren't you sharing your feelings with me? Feeling 3-year-old, right? Yeah. Or why aren't you getting more done? Or why aren't you, why
aren't you more connective? Or
why aren't you more connected? We both have introverted sensing or memory as our 3-year-old or inferior. And again, the flavor is different. So some of the things you panic about with that function, I'm not, but I'm panicking about things you're not panicking about, right? And fortunately, we, at least in that arena, we kind of leave each other alone because we get it. We're like, but at the same time, there's a part of me that wishes that you could help me with routines better. Like, I'm like, why aren't you helping me, be accountable to routines more? Like, we could get this handled, but I also know that you're not gonna, right? And so fortunately, I know enough about type to not resent you for it. But let's say I didn't. Let's say I didn't know about type and I was just like, no, this is my blind spot. This is my weakness. It shouldn't be yours. You should be better at helping me with this. So there's also going to be a little bit of, like do this for me. Help me in this, as opposed to, and then the person's like, no, you should be doing it on your own. You're an adult. And now you've got that problem. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways that requiring the person to meet you on your terms when it comes to your 3-year-old or inferior can really be a problem.